The sink shouldn't have had two coffee mugs. I remember rinsing mine out before I left for the gym. I remember it because I chipped the rim on the counter like an idiot and winced when I brought it to my mouth. That cup had a small crack near the handle. It was the one she never used because she said it tasted metallic. But now there were two mugs in the sink, both still warm, both with that faint ring of oat milk she always swore was better than cream. But she was supposed to be gone. She left Thursday night after a weird argument about nothing. Something about patterns and feeling boxed in. She said she needed to go off-grid, upstate, somewhere with trees and silence, to just exist without expectation. Her words, not mine. She packed light. Books, yoga mat, a little zip-up bag of sacred oils. No electronics. She even left her phone behind, which felt theatrical, but I didn't question it. She said she needed a reset, not surveillance. So why were there two mugs in the sink? I stood there in my gym shorts, staring at them like they were evidence in a crime scene. The dog wasn't barking. The guest room door was shut. I hadn't heard anyone come in or out. But something felt wrong. Not loud wrong. Quiet wrong. Like the air in the house was different. Warmer. Shifted. Then I saw it. A toothbrush on the bathroom counter. Not mine. Not hers. New. Blue. Wrapped in one of our hand towels like someone had rushed out and didn't want to drip on the tile. The bristles were still damp. I reached for it with a trembling hand, but stopped halfway. I don't know why. Maybe because touching it would have made it real. I walked the house in silence, half expecting someone to jump out of the closet or for her to come waltzing in with a candle and say this was some kind of mindfulness test. But nothing. Just the hum of the fridge. The tick of the old wall clock. And that toothbrush sitting there like a loaded gun. That's when I opened her laptop. Look, I know. Boundaries. Privacy. Trust. All that. But tell me, what would you do if your wife disappeared to find herself and came back only to leave invisible fingerprints all over the house? I didn't even need her password. It was still logged into everything. But what I found wasn't some love letter or suspicious messages. It was a shared calendar. Tuesday, 2 p.m., meet, D. Wednesday, 6 p.m., dinner at Cresswell, his treat. Thursday, 10 p.m., stay over. That last one was still highlighted. She hadn't forgotten to log out. She wanted me to see it. Or maybe she just stopped caring whether I did. She came home late that night, like nothing happened. Hair down, eyes clear, bag of herbal tea in hand. Said she felt renewed. Hugged me like we were actors in a play called Stable Marriage. And as she went to shower, I asked the only thing I could. Did you make coffee this morning? She froze. Just for a second. Just enough to notice. No, she said. But the mugs were still there. And so was the toothbrush. That night, after she got out of the shower, she lit a sandalwood candle and sat across from me on the couch like we were about to have a civilized discussion about nothing. She was wearing one of my hoodies, the one she always said was too scratchy, and pretending like nothing was weird. I watched her sip tea from a new mug, not the one in the sink, and I waited. Waited for her to say something. To trip. To flinch. To lie badly enough for it to crack through the performance. I broke first. There were two mugs in the sink this morning, I said calmly, staring at the floor so I didn't have to see the lie forming on her face. She didn't even blink. I must have forgotten one from before I left. They were both warm. She paused, just a beat. Maybe I rinsed one last night. You're overthinking again. Overthinking. That word stabbed a nerve. Because every time I brought something up, something real, something that didn't quite add up, that's what I got. You're overthinking. I wanted to scream. Instead, I stood up, walked to the bathroom, grabbed the blue toothbrush still wrapped in the towel, and set it gently on the coffee table between us like it was Exhibit A in a murder trial. What's this? She looked at it, blinked once, then smiled. Oh, that must be from when my sister visited last month. Remember? I think she left that here. No, I said slowly. She uses an electric toothbrush. You made fun of the buzzing noise, remember? Her mouth opened, then closed. No words came. I walked to the sink and picked up one of the mugs. There, faint but unmistakable, was a reddish-pink lip print. Not Bryn's shade. She never wore anything but clear balm. I held it up. This yours? She stared at the cup like it had betrayed her. What are you doing? She finally said, her voice suddenly sharp. Why are you digging through dishes and toothbrushes like some paranoid maniac? And there it was. The pivot. She was flipping the script. Suddenly, I was the problem. I was the one with the issue. Because I live here, I said. And I'm not blind. You weren't in the woods. You were at that Airbnb on Shoreline Avenue. You left your calendar open. I saw the dinner reservation. The 10 p.m. stayover. Who's Dee? Her face drained of color, like I had slapped her with a bucket of ice water. That's not what it looks like, she whispered. Oh, good, I said, laughing through the ache in my chest. Because it looks exactly like you lied to my face and brought someone into our house while telling me you needed space. For a second, I thought she was going to cry. She looked like she wanted to. But instead, she crossed her arms and said the quiet part out loud. I thought you wouldn't notice. You never notice anything. That broke something in me. Not just her confession, but the ease with which she said it. Like I was supposed to accept it. Like she had decided somewhere along the way that I didn't matter enough to be honest with. Was he here? I asked. In our house. She didn't answer. Her silence was the answer. So I nodded, walked upstairs, and did the one thing she never thought I would. I started packing. Not in anger. Not in chaos. Quietly. Thoughtfully. I folded every shirt, every sock, every little piece of my life that she clearly thought was too easy to leave behind. I didn't scream. I didn't threaten. I didn't even cry until I was in the car, with Orbit sleeping in the back seat and the house getting smaller in the rearview mirror. She left to find herself. Turns out, she just hoped I wouldn't be paying attention. But now I was. The thing about leaving in silence is that it confuses people who expected a fight. She followed me upstairs while I packed, but didn't say a word at first. Just stood there in the doorway, arms crossed, watching me fold t-shirts like I was preparing for a long weekend, not walking out of our marriage. And I wasn't slamming drawers or tossing things in bags. I was methodical, calm. That seemed to rattle her more than anything. Finally, she spoke. You're really doing this? I didn't answer. Just zipped up my suitcase and unplugged the phone charger I always kept on my side of the bed. I even took my half-used deodorant because I didn't want to leave anything that still smelled like me behind. I wasn't going to be a ghost in my own home. She tried again, a little louder this time. Curtis, come on. Don't turn this into a soap opera. We can talk about it. You already did, I said, still not looking at her. Just not with me. She tried to laugh. A short, bitter exhale that landed flat. You're being dramatic. It's not like I was planning to replace you. I stopped mid-step and turned to face her. No? Then why did he brush his teeth here? She blinked. That toothbrush was damp, still wrapped in one of our towels. So don't insult me by pretending he wasn't in this house. And then came the part I'll never forget. She rolled her eyes. She actually rolled her eyes. Like I had overreacted because I wasn't evolved enough to understand that inviting another man into our home, our bed, maybe, was just part of her self-discovery arc. I remember thinking, is this what we've become? Just eye rolls and excuses and invisible lines in the sand she expects me not to cross? I didn't yell. I didn't break anything. I just picked up Orbit's leash, called him downstairs, and walked out the front door like a man who knew if he stayed even a minute longer, he'd say something he couldn't take back. I drove for hours. No music. No destination. Just me and the sound of Orbit's slow breathing in the back seat. I ended up at a cheap extended-stay motel just off the freeway. One of those places where the walls are thin and the pillows smell like bleach. But it was quiet, and it wasn't her. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept going over everything in my head. What I missed, where it started, if I somehow opened the door to this without knowing it. I kept asking myself if I had pushed her away or if she had simply decided I was easy to leave. But then I remembered something. Something small. Something she hadn't noticed I noticed. A leather bracelet. Brown. Woven. Definitely not mine. It had been half tucked under the couch cushion earlier that day, right after I confronted her about the mugs. I remember spotting it while I bent down to get Orbit's toy. I didn't say anything at the time because I thought maybe it was hers, some new spiritual accessory, or whatever. But now, in that motel bed, I realized what it really was. It was his, and it was still in my house. I suddenly had this image of them together on our couch, laughing, limbs tangled, while I was home alone folding laundry and believing she was somewhere in the woods, writing in a journal about her inner peace. I sat up, heart racing. She hadn't just betrayed me. She'd made herself comfortable doing it. And the worst part? She thought I was too passive, too soft, too Curtis to do anything about it. She was about to find out just how wrong she was. I don't know what snapped in me that night, But something did. I stared at the ceiling of that cheap motel room for hours, eyes wide open, heart pounding like a drum I couldn't shut off. I wasn't just hurt anymore. I was humiliated. I had walked out of my own life like a guest overstaying his welcome, while she curled up in our bed with someone who thought he could leave his bracelet behind like a trophy. And the worst part? She still expected me to come crawling back. Like always. By sunrise, I had made a decision. Not out of revenge. Not even anger, really. It was something colder. Cleaner. Like clarity. I wasn't going to confront her again. No more asking questions she already had answers to. No more playing the wounded spouse while she fed me silence or half-truths. I was going to let her win, just long enough for her to realize what losing me really meant. I went back to the house while she was out for her usual overpriced kombucha run. I knew her routines better than I knew my own, which made this easy. I parked a block away, walked in with my old house key, and for the first time in weeks, the place felt unfamiliar. Like a rental. The couch looked like someone else's now. The bookshelf was rearranged. Even Orbit's water bowl had been moved. That hit me harder than I expected. I didn't waste time. I took the bracelet and left it exactly where she'd find it, in her jewelry box, next to the little ring I gave her on our first anniversary. Not to be petty, to remind her of the mix, the contamination, the mess. I gathered the last of my things, backup chargers, my childhood photo album she never bothered to open, the leather journal I kept hidden under my nightstand. Then I opened the hall closet. That's where I left my message. See, what Bryn didn't know, what she never thought to ask, was that I'd spent the last 5 months building a startup with a guy I met at a tech seminar. It was just a side project, something small, nothing official. But last week, that project got funding. And suddenly, I was the one people wanted meetings with. She thought I was still stuck, still orbiting around her like a sad little moon. She had no idea I'd already begun rotating out of her world. So I printed something out, a page from our legal Zoom account with my name on the new LLC and a one-line note that read, "Some things grow better once you stop watering the dead parts." I left it in the closet, taped to a box of holiday decorations she always said we'd sort through eventually. She'd find it eventually. By the time she came back, I was gone again. But this time, it wasn't to escape. It was to move. I didn't go back to the motel. I checked into a friend's spare loft, Jasper, from the tech team. He didn't ask questions, just handed me a beer and pointed to the couch. That night, I slept better than I had in months. But Bryn didn't take long. The next morning, she called, and texted, and emailed. Then came the voicemail. "You were in the house? Curtis, what the hell is wrong with you?" Wrong with me? She was unraveling, panicking, trying to understand why the quiet man she thought would always be there wasn't. Why the man she underestimated had suddenly become someone she couldn't predict. And it was only just beginning. Her first voicemail was annoyed. The second was anxious. By the third, her voice cracked somewhere between confused and afraid. She said things like, "We need to talk," and "You're being cold, Curtis," and my personal favorite, "I didn't expect you to take it this far." This far? I had barely done anything except leave with dignity, while she desecrated our home with oat milk and betrayal. And now she was spiraling because I wasn't playing the part. Because I wasn't crying on the doorstep or sending long texts begging for closure. Because I had gone quiet. She wasn't used to that. I wasn't either. You have to understand. I'm the guy who apologizes just to keep the peace. The one who used to write sticky notes with "You're beautiful" on them and hide them in her coat pockets, even when she hadn't kissed me in a week. I'm the guy who waited while she meditated, journaled, and went on solo retreats, pretending I didn't feel the space between us growing like a canyon I wasn't allowed to talk about. So yeah, maybe I was cold now. Because warmth got me nowhere. She started reaching out to mutual friends. That's how I knew she was losing grip. One of them, Liza, texted me saying Bryn had stopped by in person, said she was worried about me, claimed I had disappeared in a concerning way, like I was some emotionally unstable ghost who wandered off into traffic. Let me be clear, I wasn't hiding. I was healing, just not in a way that involved her anymore. Meanwhile, the silence drove her mad. I didn't respond to the voicemails. I didn't answer her cryptic email titled "Closure." And when she tried to lure me with guilt, saying Orbit probably missed her, I didn't even blink. But then came the twist. She showed up at Jasper's loft. I don't know how she figured out where I was. Maybe Liza cracked. Maybe Bryn remembered something I said in passing. All I know is that on Thursday night, I walked out of the shower and found her sitting on the steps outside, arms tucked into that ridiculous knit shawl she only wore when she wanted to appear fragile. She didn't even look up when I opened the door. "I didn't cheat," she said softly. "Not technically." I said nothing, just leaned against the doorframe, towel over my shoulder, heart pounding like it was about to punch through my ribs. I didn't want to look at her. Didn't want to remember the way she used to smell like eucalyptus after a shower. Didn't want to feel anything. I got confused," she said. "And I didn't think you'd ever really leave. I thought maybe if I drifted far enough, you'd pull me back." That broke something in me all over again, not out of hurt this time, but out of realization. She never wanted partnership. She wanted a lifeline, a reliable emotional doormat who'd absorb her moods and still ask what she wanted for dinner. I cleared my throat. There's a difference between being lost and walking away. She looked up. Her face was tired, her mascara smudged. But behind all that sadness, there was something else. Regret? Maybe. Or maybe just shock that the man she trained to stay had learned how to walk. Are you with someone else?" she asked. The question was so absurd I almost laughed. She had moved another man into our atmosphere, and now she was jealous of my absence? "No," I said. "I'm with myself. For once." That's when she started crying. Not sobbing. Those quiet, hiccup tears that come from realizing you miscalculated something you were sure you had control over. She reached for me. I stepped back. "I don't hate you," I said gently. "But I can't unknow what I know, and I won't unleave what I've left." And then, slowly, I closed the door. I thought that would be the end. But the real fallout hadn't even begun yet. The morning after I closed the door on her, she didn't knock again. She didn't text. Didn't call. But I knew she wasn't done. Bryn never walks away from a story unless she gets to control the ending. That's the thing about people like her. They don't always want you back. They just want you unable to move forward without them. But I was moving forward. Faster than even I expected. Jasper, who'd quietly been watching this whole mess unfold, had become more than a friend. He became something like a mirror. He told me, flat out, that watching me tiptoe around Bryn was like watching someone apologize to their own shadow. That one stung, but it stuck with me. And for once, I didn't argue. I listened. I stopped making excuses for the woman who had taught me to shrink in order to keep the peace. We focused on the business. We worked long hours. I redesigned our app's onboarding system from scratch while eating boxed mac and cheese on a borrowed laptop. There was something beautiful about how ugly it all was. No polish, no safety net, just forward motion. It reminded me of who I used to be before I gave everything to a woman who wanted to find herself more than she ever wanted to find me. Then, 2 weeks later, she got the letter. It wasn't from me. It was from our lawyer. I had filed for separation quietly, not out of spite, but because after everything, I didn't want to be tethered anymore. I didn't want to be the guy who lived in limbo while she lit incense and flirted with baristas under the guise of spiritual openness. I didn't want my name legally connected to someone who could lie so easily, even when the truth was right there. Lipstick on a mug, a toothbrush in a towel, a bracelet shoved under the couch. And I know her. I know how she thinks. I know she expected me to stay in a holding pattern, orbiting her confusion while she figured out who she was. She didn't expect the legal envelope. She didn't expect it to be real. Because in her mind, I was always the soft one. The one who forgives quietly. The one who folds first. So when she called after the letter arrived, I didn't recognize her voice. It wasn't angry. It was scared. "You didn't even talk to me first," she said. "You just filed." I was sitting in a coffee shop, working on investor slides, sipping something iced and overcomplicated. I almost didn't answer. But I did. "There wasn't anything left to talk about," I said. "You said you needed space. I gave you a future without me in it." She went silent. I heard her breathing. I imagined her on our old couch, probably holding the legal packet in one hand, orbit curled at her feet, the house suddenly too quiet. And for once, she didn't roll her eyes or talk in circles. She just whispered, "I thought I had more time." That line stuck with me, because I think that's what betrayal really is. Not just breaking trust, but stealing time. Stealing the version of yourself that believed, waited, tried. She thought I'd be there when she was done playing hide and seek with herself. But I wasn't hiding anymore. And she wasn't the one I was seeking. It's strange how people assume silence equals defeat. That if you don't scream, you're weak. That if you don't post a photo, it didn't happen. Bryn had always underestimated my quiet. She mistook it for passivity. But what she never understood, what she still didn't understand, is that silence is the sound things make right before they change. And everything was changing. 3 weeks after the letter, I went to a local networking event with Jasper, something I would have dreaded before, back when I was still walking on eggshells to avoid Bryn's spirals. She used to say things like, "I don't believe in forced ambition, and men always need applause," and I swallowed those comments like they were medicine I deserved. But now I stood under warm cafe lights in a room full of strangers, pitching our startup like it mattered. And people listened. Someone from a local tech grant program asked for a demo. 2 small angel investors gave us their cards. And somewhere between my third cup of bitter coffee and Jasper's enthusiastic ramble about machine learning workflows, I realized something simple and terrifying. I was happy, not healed, not whole, not done, but happy. Not because I'd won, but because I'd stopped losing myself. That night, I posted a photo. Just me and Jasper at the event. Nothing flashy. Just a quiet smile and a caption that said, "Building something that finally feels like mine." It took 3 hours for Bryn to text me. At first, it was short. Just, "Really?" I ignored it. Then came another. "You're trying to make me jealous?" Then another. "Is this why you left? Because you wanted to feel important again?" I should have blocked her. I really should have. But part of me wanted to see just how far her story would unravel now that she wasn't directing it. I didn't reply. That's when she called. And this time, I answered. Because I wanted to hear it. Whatever it was. She sounded tired. Not just physically. Soul tired. Like someone who finally realized the game they were playing wasn't fun anymore. And they were the only one left on the board. "You really meant it," she said. "All of it. You're actually gone." I didn't gloat. I didn't rub it in. I just told the truth. You were never afraid I'd leave. You were afraid I'd learn how. There was a pause. Then a laugh. A small, broken thing. "He left me," she said. "The guy? D. He said I was emotionally unavailable." That should have made me feel something. Relief. Justice. Even petty satisfaction. But I didn't feel any of it. Because I realized that, in the end, it was never really about him. It was about how she never truly chose me. She chose the idea of me. The convenience of me. The way I waited, folded, apologized. But not me. "I hope you find yourself," I said quietly, echoing the very words she left me with. But this time, I meant them. Because now, she'd be searching alone. I didn't tell anyone right away, but something shifted after that call. It wasn't loud. It didn't feel like a movie moment. It was subtle, like exhaling after holding your breath too long and realizing the air feels different now. Cleaner. I went for a walk that night, just me and Orbit, through quiet streets lit by soft streetlights. He kept glancing up at me like he knew, like he could finally feel I wasn't carrying the same weight. That week, I moved into my own place. Not Jasper's spare couch. Mine. It was small, a little crooked, and the oven door squeaked when I opened it. But it was mine. I bought a couch that I liked. Navy blue, soft enough to sink into, no weird boho fringe. I filled the fridge with things I actually enjoyed eating without needing to justify them to someone who thought grocery lists were a form of oppression. I even bought real plates. For the first time in years, I wasn't designing my life around someone else's mood swings. And then, without trying, without even looking, I met someone. Her name was Tessa. We met through a mutual friend who thought I needed a reason to smile. I wasn't ready, not fully, but she didn't ask me to be. She didn't rush anything. She just showed up with calm energy and honest eyes and a laugh that didn't feel rehearsed. She asked questions and actually listened to the answers. She didn't need saving. She didn't want fixing. She was just there. The first time she came to my place, I was nervous. I caught myself cleaning the already clean kitchen, wondering if she'd noticed the squeaky oven. But when she walked in, she smiled and said, "It feels like a safe place." I don't know why, but that hit me harder than any compliment I'd ever gotten. She noticed the leather journal on the shelf. I hadn't touched it in months. I told her it was full of stuff I'd never let anyone read. She said, "One day, maybe." One day? Not now. Not pressure. Just, maybe. Meanwhile, Bryn stopped calling. I think she finally understood that whatever version of me she thought would stay frozen in her rearview mirror had melted away. There was no grand confrontation. No final blowout. Just quiet. Which, in its own way, was was louder than anything she could have said. Last week, I walked past our old house while visiting a friend in the neighborhood. The curtains were different. The porch light was off. It didn't feel like mine anymore, and that felt okay. It felt right. Because here's what no one tells you when you get cheated on, abandoned, forgotten. You don't just lose something. You make space for something better. Better boundaries. Better mornings. Better love. I used to think the worst day of my life was the day she left to find herself. But the truth? It was the day I finally started finding me.